Let's see. Is this working? I have no idea. If you're still here waiting, thank you. I really appreciate your patience. Um, this is the first time I'm going live in YouTube. And so I'm just trying to figure things out, of course, during a Mercury retrograde. I can see that there maybe were people waiting on a different stream. And I'm really, really sorry that I'm not really kind of figuring this out. But you know what? I'm just going to go forward with this. You can watch the replay, and thank you for being here. So I'm Leslie Tagorda. I am a business and brand astrologer, and I wanted to come on today to talk about our upcoming Neptune in Aries. Now, Neptune in Aries, we are going to be beginning a 13-year call to compassionate courage. And so, what does it mean to lead with fire and compassion in a world that feels like it's burning? Right? I know that's a little bit extreme. I don't mean to fearmonger, but it truly is. Neptune's shift into Aries marks the beginning of a 13-year era, one that demands we show up with soul and vision and with courageous action. And so today I really want to explore what Neptune in Aries is really asking of us as changemakers, as leaders, as spiritual beings in motion. And so today, I really want to go over just kind of some of the history of Neptune and Aries, what it means as we look back in history. Because while we can look back at history, it doesn't mean that all these themes are going to exist again. But we learn from history, so how to not make the same mistakes. We can learn how we move forward, how we can hear the rhymes and the themes so that we can make different reactions, different responses, different decisions. I also want to kind of take a look at Neptune and Aries in the broader perspective of the connection with the other outer planet shifts that are happening in 2025 that won't fully arrive until we get into 2026. And so we have Saturn, we have Uranus, we have Neptune, all of these planets that will be shifting in 2025. The first one, Neptune. And so what does that look like? Then I want to start to look at what is this an invitation? What is Neptune and Aries asking of us to step up into this brave new world of leadership? Neptune, ruler of Pisces, being that compassionate leadership. And of course, how are we going to prepare for this 13-year cycle? Like, what are we all going to do? And then also a message for each sign. So hello and welcome. I see people are finding me here, and just thank you. If you want to put in the chat where you're watching from and say hello, that would be, ask your questions. I love to hear that. And so thank you again for coming in. As I said, this is my first time doing a YouTube live, and I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know how to. Hello, Sweden, beautiful. Thank you for joining me. Just trying to figure out the technical things, always trying out new things. So why not? So I just want to just mention again what we'll be talking about today as people are stopping in. Ooh, New York. Hello, CT. I'll be in New York City from April 18th through the 27th. I'm trying to organize some events. So I'm not sure if you're in New York City or out in like Western New York or whatnot, but hello. Perfect. All right. So again, today we're going to be talking really about Neptune in Aries, and I'm calling the theme of 2025 and even into 2026 compassionate courage, because it takes a lot of compassion to be courageous. It takes a lot of courage to be compassionate. It's not always easy to be compassionate, right? And so I really want to explore that in terms of like what this is going to mean for us. And so when we think about just like the outer planets, and I actually wonder if I can share my screen. Ooh, I can share a screen. Okay, let's see if I can show you this. Ooh, okay, can you see this? Let's see if I can make this bigger for you all. A timeline that I put together every year. And Neptune is going into Aries on March 30th. Now, because of the retrograde motion, Neptune is going to start to go retrograde again in July. That's this purple line over here. And so when it goes back in retrograde, starting on July 4th, all the way through December, it's going to dip back into Pisces, and it's not going to fully arrive into Aries until 2026. And why this is important, it's because Saturn, who travels a lot faster than Neptune, is going to catch up and also enter Aries in late May. Like Neptune, Saturn is going to go retrograde, going to dip its toes back into Pisces, and then in January in 2026, Saturn and Neptune are going to be meeting in an exact conjunction at the world axis point. And that world axis point, this Aries of 0 degrees that we hit yesterday. You know, a lot of mundane astrologers are always looking at that Aries of 0 degrees. It's called the world axis point. It's the beginning of the astrological new year. And we're going to see this point activated over and over and over again over the next couple of next months, next like half of the year, next year. And so as we take a look into Neptune entering Aries, part of this idea is forging your compassion. Remember that Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is a cardinal fire sign. Aries is traditionally a leadership sign. It wants to know thyself. It wants to go where nobody else has gone before. All of those fire signs have this kind of like exploration. And like Aries is like, let me go first. Let me hack the trail. Let me like pioneer. Let's go where we haven't gone before. And so Aries energy is to get things started, to trailblaze, to be its best self, to advocate, to initiate. And so we all have Aries in our chart somewhere. And so if you look at where this Aries of 0 degrees is in your chart, whatever house it is in, you can already feel that it is very intense. There's all this energy that's going on right now with the sun moving in. That's why we're feeling that kind of like, spring is here. Even if you're in the southern hemisphere, we feel this kind of refreshness because it is the beginning of our solar new year when the sun moves into Aries of 0 degrees. And so Neptune, which is really a watery planet, it's a very expansive planet. You know, the symbol of Neptune is that trident, that underwater gods and have all of this vast energy, that water that connects and unifies us all. And so when we think of Neptune as a planetary process, because I love talking about Neptune's, the planets as planetary processes, they all have their ability to create change. And Neptune's ability to create change in our lives, in the world, is to dissolve. I always love thinking about Neptune as like the great watercolorer. I'm not a fine artist at all. I'm a musician. And yeah, music is very Neptunian also because you can't hold on to it. If you play a piece of music and it's not being recorded, that music exists for that moment in time and then it's gone. You can't grab or hold on to music. Just like if you're painting with watercolor, you don't really have control over the lines. You don't have a lot of control over how the colors will bleed. And to play with watercolor is to really play with, well, what's going to happen? What's going to be like, what's unexpected? And so when we think about Neptune, it's process to dissolve, it's process to immerse, it's process to unify. When we think about it in a more pragmatic way in our leadership style, it allows us to transcend. Now, I know that the word transcendence is a very spiritual kind of word. And yeah, Neptune and Pisces are the archetypes of spirituality, not the archetypes of man-made religion, but the archetypes of like, hey, we belong to something greater than ourselves. We belong to something higher than ourselves. And so when we're thinking about Neptune and its ability to transcend in our leadership, our individual leadership, we're really thinking about how are our actions part of something bigger? How are we doing something that has bigger meaning and not just to put money in our pockets? right? The people, the authoritarians of our world right now, the people who are making the billions and, doing terrible things, they're not caring about like what's best for the world. You know what they're caring about? They're caring about their bottom line. They're caring about just like the money in their own pockets. And that's not the type of leadership that we are trying to create here. And so when more people like you and me are doing the right thing to make the world a better, to allow humanity to transcend, to unify, to go beyond borders, to go beyond political affiliations, to go beyond neighborhoods, to come together and create something better. Oh my gosh, isn't that just the best feeling of Neptune? And so Neptune is going to be leaving its home sign of Pisces, where it's super, super, super comfortable, watery and vast. And now it's going to be flying into Aries, where it's bold, where it's courageous, where it's fiery and passionate. And so when we have this water and fire, there's a lot of steam. And if you've ever cooked with steam, if you've ever worked with steam, you like if you do like a facial or something, that steam like clears your pores. Or if you've ever cooked with steam, it creates these beautiful vibrant colors in your vegetables. It makes your food really moist without adding all kinds of oil. What I'm getting at is that this steam has the ability to really transmute. And so as Neptune goes into Aries, the question that Aries and Neptune is asking us, what fires, because and what I mean by fires is that there's so much conflict in our world. There's so much division. There are so many literal fires, forest fires and wildfires. What fires are reshaping your compassion into strength? Because that energy of fire does forge something new. I love this idea of forging. And so again, Neptune is going to be in Aries from March 30th until October 22nd, and it's going to dip back into Pisces for about 4 months, where we get to go, are we really like, what else do we need from Pisces that we need to take with us? What from Pisces do we need to leave behind before we fully arrive in January of 2026 and then stay there for 13 years? Now, when we have Neptune in Pisces, Neptune in Aries, excuse me. Sorry, I'm all over the place because I'm trying to like figure out this new technology. This is not my thing right now. Dealing with a lot of things. So Neptune takes 165 years to go around the zodiac, and it spends about 13 and a half years in each sign. And so the last time Neptune was in Aries, it was 1861 to 1875. And again, like I said at the very beginning, we want to look back into history to know the themes, to know what was going on, to learn from our past trials and tribulations so that we can take bold action and different action today and now. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she was talking about her high school son, and she was saying that he hated history. And I remember back when I was a youngster, I also hated history because nobody ever told me why learning history was important. So we don't repeat ourselves. Now, the biggest thing that happened in history between 1861 to 1975, at least from my perspective as an American citizen, was the American Civil War. And the American Civil War, where it was kind of like this battle of right versus wrong. I don't think that the United States ever really truly recovered from this Civil War. And so when we're thinking about this Civil War, there was a separation. There was like the North against the South. But ultimately, what happened is we still were able to come unified. We abolished slavery and this idea of abolition, this ability to come together. there were so many leaders that came through during the Civil War. And so people who didn't think that they were doing anything grand or big, but were having some major contributions to the world. So let me go to my notes. I'm going to go back to the historical context. Okay, so again, we have the US Civil War, where we were talking about abolition, collective reckoning. It was very, very painful for many of us in the United States at that time, but there was so much courageous compassion. Another thing that was happening was Florence Nightingale. She was a revolutionary nurse, and she was revolutionizing public health care with compassion. I really think that the work that Florence Nightingale was doing really shows like what is possible. So if we do like a little Google search for Florence Nightingale, she was an English nurse, and she grew up. Gosh, where are the notes that I wanted? What was that big thing that she did? Why can I not remember this? Modern nursing. Okay, I'm just going to skip that because I forgot about that. I'm sorry. But I don't have my notes in front of me. Oh, Mercury retrograde. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, this is one interesting thing. She was part of a Unitarian family. The Unitarians, a religious group that believe that there is a place for all different types of spirituality. I mean, how Neptunian is that? I absolutely love that. And there was also a rise in humanitarianism. And so there were so many sick people, and all of these different technologies in healthcare and taking care of each other. What else is going to be created at this time? And so I wonder what this means for you, and what themes that you might see. Because when I'm thinking about Neptune in Aries, I always love to think of the ideas of like what we want to move towards, what we want to reframe, what we want to do, and the things that we don't want to repeat, the things that need to be dissolved and dismantled. And so this idea of devotion versus dominance. And so Neptune in Aries, I want us to really think of our actions as devotion. If you've ever taken a class from me, I always talk about when I see Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, a Neptune aspect, I always see these people that have, it doesn't matter what kind of aspect it is. It could be a conjunction, it could be an opposition, it could be a trine. The people, the natives that have that Neptune Mars aspects, they are truly devoted. And when I think of their kind of devotion, I think of their devotion as like, martial artists who return to their practice day after day, not because they want to get better per se, like maybe yes, there is this competitive edge in them, but because it's a spiritual practice for them. To me, this idea of devotion means spiritual practice in embodied action. That's the Neptune and Mars. And so, what are you devoted to? Because sometimes when I hear a client saying, I'm stuck, I don't know where to get started, I want to ask them, well, what's important? What is a spiritual practice for them? What are they devoted to? Because if you have that spiritual connection, meaning you know that there is something bigger than you and that you're taking daily action, that is devotion. We need to dismantle this idea that I'm going to show up so I can like take control or control others or even control my own action, because the dominance can be internal also. We often think of dominance as external, but if we are hyper controlling for our own self, we are in essence dominating parts of ourselves. And so I want you to explore, and again, this is 13 years, but we're going to really feel it, especially now in those first few years as Neptune moves into Aries before we kind of settle into that 13-year journey. What does devotion or dominance mean to you? And if you are watching and you have something in the chat that you wanted to share about your viewpoint of devotion and dominance, like let me know. I'd love to hear. Now, strength and compassion versus fear of vulnerability. I want to dig into this a little bit because I've been talking about this a lot, and I'm going to be talking about this courageous compassion for quite a while. I think, again, this is the theme of 2025. Um, up, not up until now, I think there's always been people who have known that being kind, being soft, giving grace is not always easy. And we choose to do that anyway. And so in your work, in your leadership, in your change making, I see you as a leader, whether you are caring for others, whether you are an entrepreneur working for others and trying to change things inside out, if you're an entrepreneur starting your own businesses, if you're an activist, if you're a community organizer, people depend on you. You get things started, you are here to energize things and keep things going in your own way. That to me is what a leader is. And when we lead with compassion, this is something that we need so much in this world, especially when there's many jobs right now that are going to be replaced by AI. What is going to be the difference between artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, human connection and kindness, and doing the right thing? And so when we're thinking about this idea of compassionate courage, I want us to redefine leadership, that there is softness, there's not hardness, that there's caretaking, not abandonment, that there is presence and just being there versus like trying to work hard and be perfect all the time. And that there is this place of leading from emotional intelligence and strength, understanding, curiosity. Anytime I talk about the water signs and their leadership, I talk about how water signs are so important, especially Cancer, to hold space, because if we're not feeling emotionally safe, the change that is happening is not change that is for our highest. It's change that is happening because we're making changes based on fear. And so for us to do the big transformation, to take big leaps out of emotional security, we have to let our guard down. And oh my gosh, have I seen this coming like just so to the fore lately? I've noticed, I've been talking to some of my spiritual friends who, serve clients, and we've been seeing a lot of resistance in people, a lot of people not wanting to come to terms with their own challenges, not wanting to face their traumas, not wanting to, really assess the things that are blocking them from their highest. We all need others to help us to reflect, because it's really impossible for us individuals to see our blind spots. And oftentimes, if we're holding on to a lot of trauma from the past, those blind spots, we cannot see the walls that we have erected to protect us. Now, at one time, we did absolutely need those walls to protect us. But when we're moving into this courageous compassion, we have to know how to let those walls down, to understand that vulnerability and sensitivity isn't always weak. Now, of course, I'm speaking from a place of privilege, and I want to honor that. There are some people here that really do need to be protected and have those walls. And how can we, if we are one of those people, how can we find the courage to find people who might be safe for us, ask for help from people who might be safe? And we really, really need that. So if you are a leader of privilege and you don't always have to have your walls up, how can you lead with vulnerability? By sharing your story, by saying that you're not perfect, by, telling your truth. It's just been so beautiful to watch. Seb says, Cancer moon here. I feel compassion is so important, but I'm not sure I see that a lot from others. Yeah, so Sub 22, this is, we see that a lot, especially like in the media, right? If we're looking at just kind of traditional media or traditional leadership, we're still seeing that old type of leadership that is really dissolving. And that old type of leadership is just like power over, dominance, control, my way or the highway. Like we're not seeing this compassion at all, right? Especially from like in, again, I mean, the United States and the federal government, we're not seeing this. It's going to take one person to show the way that kindness can be such a balm to what people need. We're absolutely moving away from domination. One of the things that I failed to say in the very beginning is that we are in the age of Aquarius when we look at this idea from Pluto. Now fully in Aquarius, all the way at 3 degrees of Aquarius, where it's going to be for the next 20 years. Pluto is really the process of Pluto is to distill, it's to transform death and rebirth. And Aquarius is for the people. And so everybody who has not been for the people, we're going to start to see some real, what is the word that I'm looking for? Oh my gosh, words, Leslie. Reconciliation. That's the word. I have to believe that as I look forward into the future, that the current United States administration, there's going to have to be some checks and balances. It cannot continue this way. And so how can we individually, we can't change the administration from the top down, but we can certainly change what's going to happen from the bottom up. And so if people like you and me are leading with kindness and compassion and sharing our own stories, one of the reasons why I always share my story of like being mixed race and not understanding my identity and then always trying to code switch and just going through decades and decades of pretending to be somebody else. That's the whole reason why I work in leadership and identity right now. It's because from my greatest wounds and comparison, isolation, not enoughness, that I talk about those things with courage. Like that's not easy to say. Like the first time I said, like my identity or the things that I was ashamed of about myself, it's much easier for me to talk about it now because I've been practicing that. But I want everybody to really, they don't have to self-identify with your wounds, but to know that where our wounds are, where our challenges, where our traumas, that comes our greatest strength. That is where all of our jewels and our personal wisdom that we are supposed to contribute back. If you knew me last year when I was talking about Chiron North Node conjunction that happened in that last eclipse season back in February of 2024, that to me was for all of us to say, hey, we can be like Chiron. We can be the not necessarily the wounded healer. That's not a really good name for this Chiron archetype, because Chiron was more than wounded, but Chiron is able to heal in others what they can't heal in themselves. And so for me, that comparison, that unworthiness, that shame about my identity being mixed race, that's something that's still like I haven't fully healed. I talk about it, but it's something that I carry with me. And it's something now that I befriended, and I understand that when I'm feeling those kind of insecurities that come from those old wounds, I can say, oh, I recognize you. What is it that you want me to do right now? What is it that you're trying to tell me? And so our fears and our challenges are actually always supporting us and asking us to do something differently. And it takes courage to do something differently. It takes self-compassion to not judge ourselves for being stuck for so long. It takes self-empathy to say, it's okay, it wasn't your fault. And it takes a lot of self-courage to say, let's try something new. Okay. So you can see why I'm super passionate about this idea of there's strength in compassion and why compassion is so courageous and the balm that we need so that we can choose to make the right decisions, even though sometimes those right decisions seem very, very, very scary. Okay, coming back to Neptune in Aries. So, when we think about Neptune and its ability to transcend, one of the things is that Neptune is very much a visionary energy. It sees the future. It wants us to go beyond. That's the idea of transcendence. It wants us to take us out of our current reality and put and envision something new so that we can say, I can see that's a possibility for me. And so, in this idea of creation, a focus on what's creating what's possible, that takes a lot of imagination, a lot of Neptunian imagination. And in order to really see what's possible and move towards and keep our eye on that path, we have to fight the resistance to be perfect, to have it all figured out. Right. And there's that internal, external conflict in terms of like, I'm going to fight it. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm afraid of failing. And so to create again takes so much courage into saying, well, what is it that I truly want? Can I believe in this? Can I believe in what's possible and move towards that? The next one I want to compare is self actualization. That's very much an Aries term versus self centeredness. I think you know where I'm going with this. And so a lot of times Aries is, judged for being selfish and self-centered. Now, Aries, there's this fine line between like, I'm going to fill my own cup. I'm going to take care of myself. I got to fuel myself first before I can take care of others. That is not selfish. And so to understand that this total selfishness, the self-centeredness is like all those authoritarians out there. Give me more money. I'm going to invest in this if you do this. And just like, there's just this greed in the self-centeredness. That is not what I'm talking about. I want us to all move away from that. And, we probably all have a little bit of that because we've been taught by our society that there's not enough. But that is untrue. So we need to resist the urge when we're feeling like, I don't have enough, I'm not enough, mine, so that we can move into this Aries self actualization. Now, so self actualization is this idea of becoming our very best, becoming the leader we desire to be, becoming the change maker that we want to be, becoming the role model that we want to be, going where we are supposed to be going and not like going along somebody else's path. And so self actualization is the result of self knowing. And self knowing is, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be. These are the strengths of my star powers, my cosmic makeup. I'm not denying them anymore. I'm not dismissing them. I know who I want to be. But if you have a lot of walls put up, if you have a lot of blocks put up, if you're fighting everything in this trauma response of I have to protect myself, then where you need to be coming into is self-realization. And so self-actualization is like, I am becoming it. I am walking my path. And self-knowing is knowing my path, exactly where I want to go. But self-realization is saying, oh, I have a path that is different from what I think it is, from what I believe it is. And so self-recognition is doing that, like unearthing, and the reflection is like, is this the life that I really thought I was going to build for myself? Are my beliefs too limiting? Am I just like repeating these old patterns that no longer serve me? Am I dismissing and devaluing all the things that make me? And so self-realization is going to help you with that. Self-knowing is like, I know who I want to be. I know what my path is. I know where I want to go. And then self-actualization, my friend, is doing it. And so I hope for all of us over the next 13 years, you can already look back 5 years and see how far you've come. And so I want you to start reflecting back on your self-actualization. Are your daily habits that you're taking action on, that devotion, helping you with that self-actualization, that becoming? So Arian, so Aries, I mean, so Aries, Ariesian. The next part I want to just explore is this idea of advocacy versus aggression. And so when we're thinking about advocacy versus aggression, I want us to really think about, what are we fighting for? Some of us fight for no cause. We, again, if we have our walls up and we're just like always fighting and fighting and fighting, sometimes we don't realize that we're really just truly fighting against ourselves. And so we start to believe certain things, that like maybe nobody likes me, or everybody's against me, or the world isn't built for me, or I hate people. Like, those are limiting beliefs. And those limiting beliefs come from unresolved or unexamined past hurts that you haven't really like moved past. You're stuck in this cycle of aggression. Let's just burn the whole thing down. I don't care about this anymore. It doesn't matter. And so we want to leave that behind. We want to dismantle that idea of aggression so that we can move into that advocacy. Advocacy means I am speaking up and standing up for what's right, for my truth. Am I standing up for, and maybe you're standing up for others, maybe you're standing up for the people or the beings or the creatures that you care for. Standing up for what's right, standing up for what's truthful does not need to be aggressive. It can certainly be assertive. There's a difference between the assertive and aggressive. Aggressive is really that fight energy, but advocacy and assertiveness is like, I am standing my ground. And so how can we move more into that advocacy? And lastly, the one that I want to explore is this idea of unity versus isolation. And we're going to see more of these themes, especially as when Jupiter in Cancer was going to expand belonging, and then Uranus in Gemini is going to be shaking up our different communities. But the most successful people are people that come together, people that have communities, local communities, global communities, online communities, in-person communities. And so I want you to remember that you cannot do this alone. Whether you're building a business, whether you're doing healing, whether you're doing any kind of work. If you're trying to do things alone, first of all, how audacious of you that you can think that you can be a lone wolf and get anything accomplished. It does not work that way. And so, especially if you're on this healing path of like, there's parts of me that I want to make wholeness of. There's parts of me that I want to work through. I know I put that word healing in my slide, but I actually don't believe that we are ever fully healed, like the wound doesn't exist anymore. That wound is part of you. It's a gift. It is something that you were given as an opportunity to create something even greater. And so if you are working in isolation, you're not going to be creating that wholeness. You're not going to be getting better. You're not going to be working through your challenges, your traumas, your shifts, right? In isolation, you're not witnessed. There's a video that I did earlier, an interview with the author David Bedrick, who wrote The Unshaming Way. And he talks about this idea of shame. And when something happens to us, we start to internalize the shame if we were not witnessed. But if there was somebody there, like if you were bullied and somebody came to your aid, that bullying event wouldn't seep in as shame. If you were abused, but somebody believed you and cared for you, that abuse wouldn't seep in. But if you were bullied or abused or had anything hard happening to you and you were gaslit, saying, oh, nothing happened to you, it's just all in your mind, you're fine, you're all right. well, that then becomes internalized shame. And that shame festers. And so if that has happened to us, and for most of us, it has at some point, when we start to heal, we talk to people, we talk to our friends, we talk to our trusted family and friends, we talk to communities, we talk to therapists, we talk to people who witness that to help us unearth that. It doesn't happen alone. It happens in community. And so, unity, especially like your local communities, we're going to see the importance of local communities coming through already, at least in the United States, with like our administration getting rid of like the Department of Education, getting rid of USAID, getting rid of all of these things that people depend on. We're not going to be able to depend on like this big overarching like Wizard of Oz in the sky. We are going to be depending on our local communities, our neighborhoods, our municipalities, our states. And so we're going to see this really, really growing. And so wherever you live in the world, I want you to do the invitations. Be courageous and go out and meet new people. Find your friends in real life. We have our friends that we come together over our shared social values. So get really clear on what your personal values are, what your social values are. And this is how you're going to be able to attract your people, your communities, because you are not here to do this alone. Speaking of not having to do this alone, my community is open. Our doors are open right now. Our opening ceremony is on next week, Thursday, on the 27th. So if you are interested in a global community of changemakers, astrology-loving changemakers. We talk about astrology. We have star hours. We have new moon ceremonies. We have master classes just like this. I invite you to head on over to starpower.com/circle. You can pay as low as $55 USD a month for this brilliant, beautiful global community. So there is a space for you if you love astrology, if you love leadership, and you want to make and do better things in the world. Okay, enough of a commercial. I didn't expect to have that commercial. Okay, I'll be coming back and talking about that Saturn in Aries. So let me stop sharing right now, sharing, and come back here. So I'm curious for people who are still listening, what spoke out to you the most in terms of wanting to step into more of your courageous compassion? Was it the unity piece? Was it the advocacy piece? Was it strength as compassion? Was it, oh gosh, I should have left my slides up. Was it devotion? Was it creating what's possible? I would love to hear what you are most looking forward to with this Aries, Neptune in Aries. Let me go back to my notes. Okay, here we go. All right, so we've gone through the history, we've gone through how to work with this energy. And again, just remembering that all in the context of the other shifts, we have Pluto in Aquarius, which is transforming what it means to be power to the people, that we are all leaders in the age of Aquarius. Saturn will be going into Aries in May, which is going to help us crystallize our courage. So I really want you to really know who you are and crystallize that. How do you give structure for your brave vision? Then we also have Uranus that's going to be moving into Gemini, which is going to shake up with how we communicate and how we form alliances, especially on that local level. So, communications are going to change a lot. Maybe we're not going to have Facebook anymore. Maybe we're not going to have YouTube anymore. I don't know. So how are we going to communicate? We're going to go back to the old fashioned ways, maybe like just knocking on people's door and leaving a note for people. Jupiter will also be moving into Cancer, which is going to be teaching us more of that softness, that openness, that acceptance and validation that we need to nurture and to create that kind of familial bonding and belonging. And then, of course, the lunar nodes, we have one more eclipse that's coming up, the last eclipse in Aries, the lunar nodes now in Pisces and Virgo, which again is more dissolving divisions and moving into that interconnectedness. And so all of this is happening together, and that's why I'm calling this a time of compassionate courage. So last thing I want to share with you before I sign off today, and just thank you for joining me for my first YouTube live and sticking with me through all of like my tech experiments and trying to figure it out. I want to leave one inspired message for each sign. Now, I invite you to listen to this for your rising sign, because I love our rising signs. Our rising sign is really how we initiate, how we get things started, how we advocate, how we self-actualize. It is the key to our unique leadership style. Okay, that's that first impression that we want to lead with. So I invite you to listen to this for your rising sign. If you don't need your rising sign, or if you don't know your rising sign, I invite you to listen to this for your sun sign. And so when we think about each of these signs, I want to leave you a message that I want you to plant into your heart, especially, right now we're in equinox season, everything is fresh, everything is ready to be tended and nurtured for growth. And so if you are an Aries rising or an Aries sun, or just have a lot of Aries, your message is lead with heart and fire, not just force. If you are Taurus, I want you to root your courage in care for yourself and for the earth. If you are a Gemini, I'm a Gemini rising, so this is for me. Use your voice to disrupt with love and connect with purpose. Indeed, that's what I'm trying to do here. If you're a Cancer, I love all of my Cancer leaders. Your care is not weakness, it is powerful leadership. For my Leos, I want you to shine, not just for recognition, but to light the way for you and others. For my Virgos here, I want you to heal through service, not perfection. Practice makes devotion. For my Libra friends, don't wait for balance. I want you to create it through brave justice, mediation, and facilitation. For Scorpios here, I want you to transform your pain into purpose and fear into fuel. If you're a Sagittarius rising or sun, I want you to fight for a vision that uplifts the collective. Know your big purpose and what you are fighting for and advocating for. If you're a Capricorn, I want you to build with integrity, to lead with that devotion, to build structures for something that is bigger than you. For my Aquarius friends, I want you to disrupt and revolutionize with love, not detachment. Keep people in your heart. And lastly, for my Pisces friends, trust your sensitivity. It is your spiritual superpower, your empathy, your compassion, your ability to see a bigger and brighter future. We need this in the world. So thank you, my friends, for listening. I hope I can figure out how to get this onto the replay. I loved having you here, and I can't wait to, there's one more episode coming. That's the episode for our eclipse that's coming. And then maybe Jeff will be back for a more professionally broadcast podcasts recorded. He's on vacation right now. If you don't know, I have like a right-hand person who is on a much needed vacation. I hope they're doing really well in Asia, where they're having fun with their friends right now. But we miss them. Should I do more lives? All right, I'll take that as an invitation. Thank you, Seb22. I can't see people's names, so I'm calling you by your handle. But thank you very much. I will talk to you all soon. Have a beautiful day, and let's connect. Find me on my website. You can sign up for my newsletter, or find me on Instagram at BeStarPowered. All right, bye for now.